Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, July 9th. Got to be good on my months. July 9th, 2024. I led some of you astray in June. I sent you to January. July 9th, 2024, Bucknuts Morning 5. I am Dan Rubin. I will be back in just a sec here with the Dean, Bill Kurelic, and Mark Porter, the Grandpua. But first, you ever get to where you're traveling, you don't know what to put in your bag, you don't know how to pack, you pack too much, you don't pack enough. Now your suitcase exceeds the weight limit and you're not having a carry-on anymore. It's the same with your hygiene products. You can definitely simplify travel with Mando's 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar. Mando for men. It's a 5-ounce bar that does the work of a shampoo, face wash, body wash, and deodorant. You can also use it to create a rich shaving lather. So technically, it's a 5-in-1. It's clinically proven to control odor for 24 hours. The 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar is formulated with a gentle alpha hydroxy acid that stops odor at the source. Regular soap can't do that because the pH is too high. What is that? Don't worry about it. I have no idea. And supposedly it's good. You can get it in 3 cologne quality scents. And I know you guys like to mix it up. Mount Fuji, fresh and woodsy. Bourbon Leather, sweet and sophisticated. Sounds like Pat Murphy to me. Pro Sport, clean and citrusy. You know. I got to tell you what I like about Mando. And like I said, 5-in-1. You're packing, you're going to very, very easy. Whole body deodorant. And it's seriously safe to use anywhere on your body. It's perfect for new customers. You get their starter pack. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And you're even luckier. You're here at Bucknuts, and I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com. shopmando.com. It's legit. It really does smell great. Bourbon leather guy myself. And a couple of bourbon leather specialists here. The Dean, Bill Kurelic. The Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. I appreciate everyone starting with us 15 minutes late today. That is on me. We are scheduled for 9:15 as opposed to 9. Life got in the way. But, Bill, we talked about chopping on some low-hanging fruit to start the day. We're going to talk about some great commitments we got and such. But the big recruiting news was the top offensive lineman, and you can tell me the top guy left on the board in 2025 for Ohio State, North Carolina offensive lineman David Sanders announced he would be committing. He announced when. He announced his finalists. Can you please take it away and provide solace or fear to Bucknuts Nation with your vibe on how it's going? And then we'll get Mark to let you see just how great he is on video.
Well, it is August 17 is the date. I'm sure everyone will be well tuned into that date and that announcement. Absolutely the top remaining target on the board. And that's not to put anyone else down. It's just to say how great a prospect David Sanders is and how big a need Ohio State has at that position. I mean, the two meet. Great prospect, great need, and you got the top of the board guy. It is 4 teams, Ohio State, Tennessee, Nebraska in there, and Georgia. Believe it or not, out of that group, I think that Georgia would be the biggest stretch in my mind right now to get him. I think Nebraska would be an upset, and I still think it's going to come down to Ohio State or Tennessee. And I saw where somebody said, where's he going? He's already made his decision if they set a date. Not necessarily. Keep in mind, Justin Hill knew far, far in advance that he was announcing on his birthday, July 3rd. He told me that he did not make his final decision, so to speak, until July 3rd was a Wednesday, until Tuesday night, July 2nd, is when he finally settled that he was absolutely announcing for Alabama. And by the way, I really expect Ohio State to go back and take another shot at Justin Hill, make another run for him, and try to flip him. I don't know that they'll necessarily go all in trying to flip right now, but once the season starts, I look for them to make another run at Justin Hill and see if they can flip him from Alabama. But as far as getting back to David Sanders, I have continued to say two things. It's going to be Ohio State or Tennessee in my mind, I think. And it's not going to be a matter of money. They're both going to have unbelievable packages on the table and have unbelievable packages on the table. And it's going to be a matter of where he wants to be for the next 3 to 4 years after high school and where he is most comfortable picking. I really believe that. Which one it's going to be, hard to say right now. Impossible, I think, to say right now.
It's interesting because if it was Georgia, Alabama, or even Oregon, there'd be a different vibe to it. It does seem like he wants to stay relatively close to home. We had a guy on the message board yesterday who said he's lived in Columbus, Knoxville, and Charlotte, and thinks getting to Ohio State's just as easy as getting to Knoxville. So I'd like to hear that. Mark, you've had a chance now. You've been doing this for several years for us. You've had a chance to see guys like Paris Johnson, the fellow we lost to Texas, I forget, but Brandon Baker.
I think
I might have nailed that. That'd be great if I got that. That proves well.
You nailed that one.
Right through my mid-50s, and I'm about to add one. But what are we getting if they get him? Can you kind of put him in context with the other guys we've seen?
Yeah, I was going to do that. This is a player that I have to go back historically to find other players that I remember, and you nailed it. Taylor Decker was one. Paris Johnson was one that were when you watched their high school tapes and you saw them in person. What makes me like a prospect a lot is the confidence level I have in them. And boy, do I have full confidence this is going to be a starter and probably a pro prospect. And I would put money on it in Vegas right now, which I'm someone that would never do that because I know that half of what we do in recruiting is wrong. Half of these 5 stars don't make it. Half of the first round doesn't make it. But this is a prospect that's going to make it. The only thing that could possibly derail him are the things off the field. But on the field, I mean, you're talking about an athletic specimen that runs as well as a tight end, could be a defensive end. I'm sure if you put him at linebacker, he could run around at linebacker in high school and make plays. His athletic ability and his bend and the way he gets down in the stance is better than everybody else. He looks like he comes out of it so much more athletically. The way he moves his feet and his upper body coordination to just pancake people. He's one of the best athletes. I think he looks better than Taylor Decker, and I think he looks way better than Paris Johnson did. Paris was a little bit of floppy dog, had some weakness to him, but you knew he was a no-brainer. This kid's got all the pop, all the power. I mean, it looks like he's been playing college football for 2 years, then went back to high school for a year. He's really – the hype doesn't precede him. When you see the number one player in the country, you expect something like this. And, I'm basically gushing over this player as much as I've ever gushed over a player that we've watched. But, I mean, just the technique on that last play where he slaps the hands down. I mean, he's doing things. The explosion off the ball there, he's into that player before that player's almost out of his stance.
It almost looked like a false start.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing things on film here that are just so much above the normal extraordinary player. I mean, he looks just on a different level. So my confidence level's high. Bringing up names from the past that were first rounders, easy comparisons. I think he's a little better. And now that I've said that, I'm super nervous that it's a 50-50 and we're flipping a coin. And I hope it lands on the Buckeye side because, boy, this would help solve a lot of problems for Ohio State. And I think that's the second part of this equation is, boy, we see great receivers. We lose one. We're like, okay, we got other great receivers. We see great, linebackers, whatever. Okay, we'll find another one. We've been looking for some linemen, and we could use like 3 of these guys, So to get one and bring him in, and, boy, the next question is how early could he get on the field? boy, someone's going to lose their job in a hurry. He's just too athletic, too big, too strong. And I hate to say that. This is one of the better players we've watched in the history of this podcast.
All right, Bill. Mark has done a really good job at kind of calming everybody down and not building their hopes up, I think, given the fact that the Bucknutters weren't really that psyched about him previous to this. You made a great point in there about one thing that I've kind of realized as we've gotten into this NIL world, and it's college is almost viewed, unfortunately or fortunately, how you look at that as the NFL, where you're kind of salary capping and dividing your resources out. They made the movie The Blind Side because there just aren't that many humans on the earth that can play left tackle and move like that and block Lawrence Taylor types. If you read the beginning to the movie or the book, it's about that. It's not about some, blonde mom. So I've never seen you as effusive in that praise. And Bill, just to make it worse, what kind of guy is David Sanders when you've interviewed him? What kind of school does he go to? Do you feel like academics could play a role? Do you think he could be president of the United States? Do you think he could make the Navy SEALs? Do you think he can fly an F-16 fighter pilot?
I would just say that great family, great young man. And those often go together. If you have a good family, you often have a great young man, and they do go together with the Sanders. Go back to and you mentioned academics, by the way. There's another kid on the board that I wouldn't necessarily totally rule out at this point. That's Josh Petty. And his decision is going to be highly academically motivated. Right now, you think with his sister going to Florida State, they have the edge, which they probably do. But I would not rule out Ohio State on that one yet. Again, that's going to be a very academically related decision. But as far as Sanders, he really does come from a great family. And I want to go back to you mentioned, Dan, the distance and all that. Ohio State did a really good job. At one point, there was a perception that the Sanders felt that maybe that Ohio State is in a different region. All the other schools, we're talking the schools in the South, and Ohio State's a Big Ten, a northern school. And the Ohio State staff, when he made his official visit and all, and since then, they've done a great job of making sure the Sanders know that it's really not a different region, and it's not different. It's big time football. It is especially the way football is these days. What is the Big Ten region? It is basically from East Coast to West Coast.
It's the world and elsewhere, as they said in Spinal Tap.
Rutgers to Oregon and Washington. So they've done a really good job of having the Sanders understand this is not really so much proximity. Ohio State is in just as good a shape there, pretty much as Tennessee.
All right, Mark, historical perspective, take it away.
Yeah, that's what I say. This is one of my films that I go back to every now and then because it was so unbelievable at the time. But this is Taylor Decker coming out of high school, and we're only going to watch probably 5 or 6 plays here. But for historical perspective, he has 100 pancakes in a row on this film. He's coming off the ball great. He's long and all that stuff, but I don't see the David Sanders ability here that we just watched. And we know what Taylor Decker is, one of the best in the NFL. I think also when you compare him to NFL guys, I think he's Tyron Smith, the Dallas Cowboys offensive tackle.
We know.
Yeah, and I know Dallas Dan, I've never heard that name before, but I think that's the type of player we're looking at in Sanders, is just that unbelievable pass protector with unbelievable feet. Now, there's other offensive tackles in the NFL that are like cavemen that are just 340 pounds and 6'8" and just maul you with that type of ability. But David Sanders is the athletic guy, and so when it comes to the NFL, you got to go there to find the type of player I think is. And I like that you brought up that Brandon Baker. He was very similar to this on tape last year. Yeah, so he was another guy that we were really excited about, and I don't want to put any more hype on top of this. So, we'll get to the next guy.
Sorry to interrupt you. Baker and Sanders, like Tyron Smith, like you said, when we were growing up, and for the three of us, that spans a great deal of time. Offensive linemen were cavemen. They weren't necessarily like you were told. I've had the pleasure of working a bunch of NFL locker rooms, and a lot of the guys looked like regular humans with just like 100 pounds of weight thrown on top of their body. You know what I'm saying? Like you could tell, like, you guys probably don't know who Mark Schlereth is that well, but I used to know Mark Schlereth really well when he was 320 and he got down to 210 or something. Like he was just carrying another human. Tyron Smith and these guys, they're like power forwards. Tyron Smith had like I'm not going to say he had a washboard stomach. Tyron Smith had abs. He was like the first offensive lineman that I saw that was like that. And as we've gone to a more passing set, offenses, and Sanders is as good as those guys. And now, like, we've gone the next generation where coaches have gotten a chance to coach all those guys, and you can just see it. He just looks so fundamentally sound. And look, we've built up a lot of hype here. There's no question. But
and we haven't built up the hype. He's the number one player in the country.
Fair.
Like, we're not the only ones doing this. I'm just trying to bring to the Bucknutters the qualities that make you gush and the things you're seeing on tape that are above and beyond the usual greatness, and why you can be so confident in him, blah, blah, blah.
Let's also use that. I'm going to read our next ad here, but let's also bring that up. For those of you who are complaining about recruiting, you shouldn't be doing that. The fact that we're in the mix for these guys all the time, and they'll eventually pull. We're going after the best of the best on the earth. It's like Bill said, the Big Ten swath. We'll go to Germany, man. They don't care.
Australia for punters and the like.
The world, travel the world and elsewhere. By the way, trivia before I read the ad. Do you guys know why Mark Schlereth's nickname was Stink? Bill?
I don't. I did know his nickname. I just don't know why.
Yeah, I've definitely heard him called that plenty of times.
Okay. It's not a wonderful answer. When he would get cold during games, he would pee on himself. And he smelled terrible to the other linemen, so they started calling him Stink. He's Alaskan, so I don't know. Maybe that's something they do. Anyway, I don't know if you guys got to see the show yesterday with Dave and myself, but we were looking really good. And that's because Chubbies sent us some gear. I got like the Tom Selleck Magnum PI shirt. They did not send the Ferrari. Dave had another sharp outfit, but it was really, really nice, and getting free stuff is great. But and I wore it out. My wife loved it, and they even sent me some shorts. Chubbies. It's a lifestyle apparel brand, no equivalent, and they're very humble. It has no equivalent in all of human history. Chubbies has crafted the most comfortable clothing with the most unique designs ever. And it's near impossible to wear them without being filled with the sense that life is truly a beautiful, awe-inspiring mystery with no fixed destination. So why not look good and feel good along the journey? When it comes to true style and comfort in the form of men's shorts, you cannot do better than Chubbies' original, iconic stretch shorts, 4 inches, 5.5 inches, and 7 inches. Inseam lengths. They've also got, you want to pair those with your Friday shirts, Chubby's Classic Line Swim Collection. For a limited time now, our friends at Chubby's are giving our listeners 20% off with the promo code Bucknuts at checkout at chubbysshorts.com. That's 20% off your order with the promo code Bucknuts. Support our show and tell them we sent you. Don't just blend in with the crowd. Stand out with Chubby's. I know Chubby's may not be the most adult-sounding name, but I will tell you the gear is very, very nice, and we are appreciative. All right.
Dan, I saw somebody mention in there, you're talking about these different, the weight, size, and human being type. Mentioned Joe Thomas in there. If you haven't seen what Joe Thomas looks like now as compared to what he looked like the Cleveland Browns, he's a different person. He looks like a, quote, normal human being now almost. He's lost so much weight and lost it well, and totally different looking person than when he was, I don't know, 13-year-old pro for the Cleveland Browns, however many years it was.
That's a better comparison, Bill, and very similar to the one I was trying to get on Mark Schlereth. Yeah, he just, you wouldn't even recognize him. That's what I'm saying. Joe Thomas, though, when you look at him, his body looks normal now. See what I'm saying? He had to add that stuff. So I don't know if that makes you feel good. All right, Bill, Riley Pettijohn. I think he's underrated. Seriously. He is the linebacker from McKinney, Texas, who committed to Ohio State over the weekend. We talked about this on yesterday's show, and ironically, it was Riley Pettijohn's 17th birthday, and his mom was on the show. Keep in mind, he just turned 17. It's July, going into his senior year. With the way people hold their kids back now and stuff, I'll guarantee you he's one of the younger kids on his team, if not in his class. I was a July baby, and let me tell you something. I should have been held back because I was a knuckle sandwich. But this kid,
that is so young in this day and age. I rarely hear of them, that young. And when I do, almost always do the parents or coach make note of it. Like, listen, we got a young one here.
I'll tell you what, one thing I do remember, Paris Campbell running routes in the WAC and someone yelling behind, he's only 16. And he was flying, dude, like flying, like sound of wind going by. You're like, whoa. And it paid off. But yeah, right, only 17. And by the way, McKinney, Texas, if it's not the highest level of high school football in the country, it's in the mix. You can literally, and I said this, if you want to watch some Riley Pettijohn highlights, they do great highlight videos of games out in Texas, man. It is legit. You can see him play Denton Geyer. You can see him play some other huge schools. It is awesome football. You'll recognize many players on the field. Pettyjohn, though, my understanding was he was a secondary guy. They moved him to the edge. And then this past year was his first time playing middle linebacker. He's about 6. They list him as 6'1.5". He looks a little taller now. I've seen 6'3" even listed somewhere. But 6'2", about 210, 215. And you want to talk about an athlete. He's a track star. A legit 10-7 track star, I think. So you want to talk about an ascending prospect. Number 10 player in Texas. I'll guarantee you he's younger than some guys rated ahead of him in the class below him. Okay, that's a fact. I could not be higher on Riley Pettijohn. Mark, what do you think?
Well, I was just kind of peeking at it to get a little preview here. You're right. This player is so athletic that it's, another one of those players you're like, this kid's a linebacker. When you see him run here, of course, a big hit's coming when you see a kickoff. And
he's on kickoff.
Yeah. I mean, how about that? Coverage unit. You see him lined up here. This looks like a player lined up in space, which means they trust him and his athletic ability. And there you go. There's a linebacker running in space, and that's why you take linebackers that have safety ability. He's going to look like a safety in here at linebacker the way he runs, and I think that's maybe why you said he's underrated. Maybe he's not as thick as the normal developed linebacker, but that's not what you need to buy when you're buying something out of high school. You're buying the athletic ability, the range, and you can see on the kickoff team, the first guy down there is him. He was easily winning that race, so you see
might want to block him.
Kickoff. And I'm sure there's other corners and safeties on that kickoff team, so he outran everybody. And the linebacker burst skill, there it was. That's what I was kind of waiting to see on this film is when he putting his foot in the ground and made a line to the ball, there it is, the acceleration off the block. It looked like he was blocked for a good second or so there, and there comes the acceleration, or he puts his foot in the ground and escapes. Same thing there. It looked like he could have very easily bit on the fake and has the athletic. So very, very athletic linebacker. Looks a little stringy. Maybe that's why you say underrated. Maybe he doesn't have the weight yet, but that's – of all the qualities coming out of high school, that's the one I would worry about the least because, you have strength coaches and protein bars and, the redshirt year into it, the kid is getting what he did not get out of the high school development.
I will tell you that was a huge get for Ohio State. He was extremely high on their board. They wanted him really bad, and to get that win was absolutely huge. Emphasizing really high on the Ohio State board is Riley Pettijohn.
When you watch the tape, there is someone assigned to block him on every single play. You can tell the opposition knows if they don't get him blocked, they're screwed. He does not miss tackles either, and he's one of those guys. He runs. Chris Spielman used to say this: you aim for behind the guy and cut him, and he is going through dudes, man. He's arriving there with a passion. So
I should probably add.
this might be the most underrated player we've gotten so far. I can't stress enough the age factor. In order to compare him to the other guys, you have to cryogenically freeze them for 12 months and let him catch up. That's a huge advantage. He's already kicking tail. So a lot of times when people do comparisons, they do apples to apples. In fact, if you want to do a fair comparison, what you need to look at is what if Pettyjohn was a year older than everybody else? That's the actual comparison. When people are younger, they're like, oh, what were they at the same age? That's not what you're looking at. What you're looking at is him going against older dudes. What if he was the older dude, which he's going to be when he gets in college and stuff? I couldn't be higher on the guy. Maybe too high. We'll see.
You're preaching to the choir with that age stuff. Having kids, I've watched that, and at the younger ages, it's exaggerated. And I'll say this about him: if his whole career he had to play against kids a year basically older than him in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, that turned him into a grinder. That turned him into a kid who constantly had to play catch up and constantly had to work. There wasn't any day where, like you're saying, you compare him when he was the oldest guy on the field. He wasn't the oldest guy on the field or the court very often, so he didn't get to have too many of those days where – but as he caught up in high school, this is what, as they say, wait till everything gets to high school, it evens out. I wouldn't watch this film and say he looks young. I just think you notice it maybe in like the thinness of him, which that's not a bad quality at all. And what I should have said when I was watching the film is the versatility to him. The way he runs, they have him play inside linebacker. He could play Sam. He could play Will. If he stays light and fast like this, he could be one of those 3 safeties or a roll. But what we like about players like this is it helps you disguise your defense and your coverages because he can do multiple things. You know that he doesn't always have to be a run stopper. He doesn't always have to be a pass dropper. He can do different things. He can go inside, outside, etc. So I always, when I see players that Ohio State's taking at these elite levels, the versatility of them to help disguise on defense is something I think Coach Knowles really likes. I mean, 3 safeties is a disguise right there. So any position versatility he can get out of players is definitely helpful to that defensive scheme.
Yeah,
and at least initially, Ohio State has recruited him as a will linebacker. That's what they have in mind for him at this point. Things can change, but at this point, they're talking will linebacker with him.
And so
that's what I see.
Yeah, let's clear this up. He's referred to as a middle linebacker by some people. I'm pretty sure McKinney plays a 3-4, and he's one of the guys in the 3-4. That's when you translate that to college, it tends to be an outside linebacker, especially. I mean, McKinney is loaded, so I mean he's got guys keeping people off him up front as well. He's not your classic middle linebacker. Although, what is the classic middle linebacker now? I have no idea. Coverage skills. Levon Kirkland's not walking through that door. You know what I mean? You got to be able to cover it. He can clearly do that. All right. Any more questions? Let's see what we go. We've really gone. If we miss on Sanders, Grand Poobah, I like Jameel Atkins. Jameel Atkins plays at Trotwood. He just verbally committed to Kentucky. He is legitimately huge. He plays on an AAU team with a friend of my son's. I went and watched them play. He's all of 6'7", if not 6'8". Mark, your thoughts?
That's the cliff notes right there. You see him, and for a couple years, he's high hips. I mean, his hips he's so tall, his hips are almost like in your face. His body has gone from a basketball player thin body to where he's actually added a lot of weight. When he showed up at Ohio State's camp this summer, I had to ask someone who he was again because he was probably 30 or 40 pounds heavier from the last time. So looking at him, I said this was my exact comment to the college coach. I wouldn't take him right now, but in 3 years, if you see him drafted in the NFL, I wouldn't be shocked.
Sure.
His high school tape screams development. You know, he's doing a couple things where he flashes some ability, but you can see the rawness and you can see him working. The size is absolutely undeniable. Probably the biggest offensive lineman in Ohio. Like, that's the thing that strikes you the most when you see him. Like, I don't care if he can't move. You can't get around him. He's so big. It's like one of those obvious things. But doesn't have a lot of strength in the upper body yet. And what I think about Ohio State is this kid may have in the NFL, but they don't take these projects that, have to wait around 3 years. It seems like that's probably the boat he's in. It's not a knock on his talent. It's just they can find a version of him that's a little closer to being ready to get on the field. And at Ohio State, it would take him a while because a lot of these kids are just so developed they're taking. So in fairness to him, Kentucky might be stealing one down the road. Kentucky, he'll have a year or two to develop before they'll need to push him onto the field.
And the other two offensive linemen we've talked about, besides Sanders, the other two are Josh Petty that we've talked about, and then a guy we haven't talked about that is absolutely still in the mix is Javon McFadden. He made his only official visit in the month of June was to Ohio State. Unless things change, he's not planning to make an early decision. I think he'll probably go out to Colorado for an official visit once the season starts and all. But McFadden is the other guy that we should not be forgetting about. Ohio State likes him, and he likes Ohio State for that matter.
There were some questions about comparing Atkins to DeJuan Jones. Atkins also plays basketball. I've watched both play. DeJuan Jones was considerably better. DeJuan Jones is they should be studying him somewhere, like on another planet. Seriously, he might be, I don't know. I don't even as I want to do. He's enormous, dude. There's big, and then there is DeJuan Jones. When you see someone on the sideline standing next to DeJuan Jones, you wonder why we recruited him. And then you're like, oh, he's 305? Maybe that's why. The other guy's 390 or whatever he was. I've never seen anything like that in a football uniform. And look, Bill will attribute to this. He's been really good for the Browns when he stays healthy. So
he was a saver for the Browns.
That's what he's talking about. Look at that.
Once Jack Conklin went down, he saved the Browns.
Jack Conklin. You got to pay that guy. That guy's made some cash. I'm not sure. Jack Conklin, walk-on at Michigan State, by the way. Speaking of digressions, Bill, did you see that Jazir Johnson signed with Georgia, the 6'10" center who was the center on Bronny's team, the Blue Chips? Did you guys see that? Switching from IMG basketball to football. Here's my story on Jazir Johnson. In a hotel lobby in Vegas at a basketball tournament, that team walked through the lobby, by the way, in their uniforms, dribbling a basketball. So they weren't exactly not sticking out. They happened to be staying in our hotel. You know, when you go to Vegas, the elevator bays and stuff like that. So we're all waiting. It's the team and us. The team gets on, and their two big guys don't fit with the team, so they got to go with us. It's Jazir Johnson and Luke Montgomery. Those were their two big guys. Both have switched from the hardwood to the gridiron, and we were well protected on that elevator. Anybody could have got on that. We were in good shape. So slight digression, and now we will answer the questions for Mika, who's about to blow a gasket. Bill, update us on receivers: Phillip Bell, Dalen McCutcheon, and Preston Bowman.
Well, if you haven't heard, there was just horrible news Phillip Bell-wise. His mom passed away.
Brutal.
Just horrible. And, you know, he's going to end up at Ohio State or USC. He's been planning to do his college announcement around his mom and his birthday. They both are born in late August, and she's passed away. And so that's, you know, I think everybody rightly so is giving him a little space right now, but it's still, I think, going to come down to USC or Ohio State. But I think Phillip and his family have things a little bit more important on their mind right now. Dalen McCutcheon, he is, by the way, announcing soon, July 13th. The vibe right now is more towards Florida State, but we'll see. But McCutcheon is announcing July 13th. And the other one was Phillip Bowman, or Preston Bowman, I mean. He's still committed to Kentucky at this point. Again, I've mentioned this before. That's not a kid that necessarily Ohio State offers, and that's an immediate flip to Ohio State. They're going to have to do a good job recruiting him. You know, I think he feels pretty good about Kentucky right now. But he's a kid from the backyard of the Buckeyes. His mom works at Ohio State, so we'll see what happens.
All right, let's close up some other ones. Malik Autry. We get a question every show. The defensive lineman. I believe he's committed to Auburn, Bill, and he also lives nearby. That feels like a large hill to climb.
You would think, but I was talking to someone yesterday. I did a feature on our site about the I think it was the 8 most likely remaining guys to end up at Ohio State. He was number 3 on the list. I had Sanders 1, McFadden 2, and Autry 3. Ohio State is absolutely in the ball game with him. And he's getting recruited by some of the Alabama guys for the Buckeyes. You know, you talk about guys like Zion Ziggy Grady, really working hard to get him to join him in the class, for instance. You know, I'm not predicting he's going to flip, but I'm telling you, it's a possibility.
All right, let's go rapid fire here. Will Conroy to Oregon. Should we be worried?
Say it again. I didn't see that question.
That's my fault. Will Conroy to Oregon vibes. Should we be worried? Or does Ohio State really want him?
Yeah, actually, matter of fact, I'll have an article today about Will Conroy on the site. He named his top 6. Ohio State and Oregon were in that top 6. I think they're the top 2 right now, Ohio State and Oregon. He could make a decision anytime from the next week to sometime during the season. You know, he just doesn't know right now. As he told me, he just wants to think about things and pray on things. But right now, you know, Oregon didn't come out of the blue. They've been. I look back on different things he's told me over the past few months, and he always talks about Ohio State and Oregon, and that's why I think it's one of the 2 most likely. He likes Michigan too. But you know, we'll see what happens there. I think it wouldn't shock me if he went either way on that, Ohio State or Oregon, to be honest.
I think we're going to cut it off there. We could go forever because the questions keep coming. We are not going to talk about Trey McNutt today because I don't think there's been any developments. Bill, is that accurate? It's pretty much the same old, same old.
Yeah, there's nothing really new. You know, yeah. He's another kid. He could pop a commitment at any point, or he could wait until the season. And he's mentioned the possibility of both to me in the many times I've talked to him.
Oh, this is good stuff. And we'll end on this. Matt Weinmiller, his motto, give till it hurts. He's already written his David Sanders impact article for you, Bill. Save you some time. David, I
appreciate that. David,
if you want to really impress me, do a Buckeye in the Sky with video article and send it to me. That's what I really want to see. We hope you guys enjoyed the show. We could do this forever. I could talk about Jakeem Stewart until tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. We will be back on Thursday with these guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a good one, Bucknutters.